Hello, welcome to the Psalming Effect for today. Today's June 19th, 2023. And so this devotional is for the middle of June already. It's fast approaching the time for summer Bible camps to begin, and up here in Canada, maybe they've already begun down in the States where school finishes a little bit earlier. But anyways, that's what I've been working on. And as I minister for the church here in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, that's part of my work, and I'm really looking forward to working with all the campers out at Clearview Christian Camp this summer. Today, the Psalming Effect is some thoughts from Psalm 71. But before I get to that, I just want to bring up the topic that has inspired my meditation today. You know, it's always encouraging to see people that face a lot of adversity, have had some really hard things to deal with in life, but instead of being beaten by them, instead of being buried under the weight of things that have happened to them, it's amazing to see how they have turned adversity on its head and are very positive people and are actually an inspiration to others, and in a lot of ways a great witness. You know, just this past week we're still dealing with the tragedy of a terrible bus crash in Manitoba that took the lives of 15 people. And it brought back for us in Saskatchewan memories of a bus crash that took place with the members of the Humboldt Broncos, a hockey team, a junior hockey team here in Saskatchewan just a few years ago. And so these things weigh heavily on our minds. But it's been interesting to follow the stories of some of the people, some of the families who lost loved ones in that Humboldt bus crash, because in a lot of ways it's inspiring to see how some people are able to turn even the very worst of circumstances into something positive, and have it actually turn their lives into a beautiful witness for their faith and for the God that they believe in. And so I just want to read this from Psalm 71. And this psalm is written by someone who is struggling with their enemies and with adversity. But I want you to listen and hear how this psalm ends. So it's Psalm 71, but it's the closing three verses, 22 to 24. I will also praise you with the harp for your faithfulness, O my God. I will sing praises to you with the lyre, O Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praises to you, my soul also which you have redeemed. And my tongue will talk of your righteous help all the day long. For they have been put to shame and disappointed who sought to do me harm. That's a really interesting perspective. Someone who has been attacked by enemies, by people who have sought to do them hurt, and yet they are singing and rejoicing to God. And part of what brought all this up for me, besides remembering the bus tragedy in Saskatchewan and the news of the one that happened in Manitoba, is where we were here in Weyburn in our Sunday adult Bible class. We were in Acts chapter 16, and maybe you're familiar with the mission of Paul and Silas in the city of Philippi. They were arrested and thrown in prison because some people stirred up some trouble against them unjustly. They had done nothing wrong, but people made false accusations, and I just want to read a few things about what happened to them. They seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace before the authorities. This is in verse 19 from Acts 16. Now verse 20. When they had brought them before the magistrates, they said, "These men are disturbing our city. They are Jews and are advocating customs that are not lawful for us as Romans to adopt or observe." Well, that was a lie. They weren't advocating anything that was illegal for the Romans to do, and yes, they were Jews, but they weren't operating as Jews on behalf of Judaism. They were Christians. They were believers in Jesus Christ. They were misunderstood, and but if that was all that was happening to them, that wouldn't be so bad. But instead, they were being falsely accused of things, and then listen to what happens to them after they've appeared before the city magistrates. Verse 22. The crowd joined in attacking them, and the magistrates had them stripped of their clothes and ordered them to be beaten with rods. And after they had given them a severe flogging, they threw them into prison and ordered the jailer to keep them securely. Following these instructions, he put them in the innermost cell and fastened their feet in the stocks. I mean, these were just a couple of evangelists who were proclaiming Jesus for the first time in a Roman city, the city of Philippi, but they were not doing anything illegal. They were not doing anything criminal, but here they were being treated like criminals. They were stripped. They were beaten severely with rods, we are told. And when they were sent to the prison, they were put in the innermost cell and fastened in stocks, if you know what those are, that lock down over your hands and your feet so that you can't move, you can't even scratch your ear if it gets itchy. I mean, and in the innermost cell. I mean, this is the place where you would put the most dangerous criminal. And here they're treating these two evangelists this way. Well, you would expect that they would be pretty upset, and actually, it's interesting though what you find them doing. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Wow! Now the neatest part of the whole episode is about to come, but I just want you to think about that for a minute. These men had every reason to be in a sour mood, to be complaining about the situation they're in, to be griping to the other prisoners. Well, what have you done? And look what they've done to us. You know, do we deserve this? And but that's not what they do. Instead, they're singing hymns and praising God. Well, I believe by God's hand, an earthquake comes and rattles that place. It doesn't cave in and kill them. What it does, though, is it flings all the prison doors wide open, and the chains fall from their hands and their feet, all the prisoners, and they're all set free. Now, they don't all go fleeing out of the prison, but that's what the jailer thinks is happening. And so he comes in and he throws himself down before them on his knees and begs for his life. You know, what must I do to be saved? And Paul and Silas tell him about having faith, and they teach him from the word of the Lord. And that very night, it says, he and his household were baptized. He cleans and dresses their wounds, and he puts food before them in his own house. But I want you to see what else happens, though, afterwards. Starting in verse 35. When morning came, the magistrates sent the police, saying, "Let those men go." And the jailer reported the message to Paul, saying, "The magistrates sent word to let you go. Therefore come out now and go in peace." But Paul replied, "They have beaten us in public uncondemned, men who are Roman citizens, and have thrown us into prison, and now they are going to discharge us in secret? Certainly not. Let them come and take us out themselves." The police reported these words to the magistrates, and they were afraid when they heard that they were Roman citizens. So they came and apologized to them, and they took them out and asked them to leave the city. After leaving the prison, they went to Lydia's home, and when they had seen and encouraged the brothers and sisters there, they departed. Here's what I think is interesting about this whole episode. Paul and Silas could have caused a lot of trouble for these city magistrates. Paul is a Roman citizen. You can't put a Roman citizen in jail in that time, or certainly not have him beaten with rods, stripped and beaten with rods like he was, unless he was charged with something and his charge was proven valid, that he had broken a law. But he had broken no Roman law. And as you can see, when the city magistrates realized, oh, these are Roman citizens that we've thrown in prison, not just some religious evangelists that the Jews are complaining about. Now all of a sudden they know they've done something really bad, and so they come and get Paul and Silas out of the prison themselves and say, "Could you just please quietly leave the city so that there's not any more trouble here?" But what is beautiful about this story is that Paul and Silas, because of the way they decided to handle this unfair, unjust, severe, cruel persecution that was brought against them, because they didn't respond and try to hurt anyone or stir up trouble. Instead, what they did was they turned adversity on its head. And like the Psalm said, Psalm 71, they were in the midst of this adversity in prison, singing and praying to God. They ended up being witnesses for God to the other prisoners. They were witnesses to God for the Roman jailer and his whole household. And they were witnesses for God to the church that they had planted, the believers who all came to Lydia's house, that it says they greatly encouraged before they left town. And I'm sure their story would have continued to be a witness in the city of Philippi for many years to come, of how the Apostle Paul and his fellow evangelist Silas had turned adversity on its head because they believed in God. And so let me read the verses from the Psalm one more time and see how it reflects the kind of faith that Paul and Silas had, and hopefully the kind of faith that we can have when we face even the worst of adversities. "I will also praise you with the harp for your faithfulness, O my God. I will sing praises to you with the lyre, O Holy One of Israel. My lips will shout for joy when I sing praises to you, my soul also, which you have redeemed. And my tongue will talk of your righteous help all the day long. But they have been put to shame and disappointed who sought to do me hurt." Jesus is for me in 2023.